What's up, Anchor Church? Love you. Hope you are doing well. Welcome to this week's edition of Going Deeper. And this is just an opportunity to recap what we talked about in our Sunday morning gathering and then ask some questions for you to dig into. Ideally, you dig into this with somebody else, someone that you live with, if you're married, your spouse. Maybe you just call somebody up and go grab some coffee or FaceTime them. But how do we take what God spoke to us in our Sunday gathering and then talk about it, discuss it? This is kind of how we're doing our groups ministry right now. So you're a group leader, watch this and discuss it with somebody. We're in Church Planting 101 right now, walking through the book of Titus. This week we looked at verses 10 through 16. I'm going to read a little bit of it as a recap and then have you ask some questions. Starting in verse 10, it says, "There are many rebellious people who engage in useless talk and deceive others. This is especially of those who insist on circumcision for salvation. They must be silenced because they're turning whole families away from the truth by their false teaching, and they do it only for money." If you haven't listened to the message yet, we talked about that extensively. But what I want you to consider and talk about is this phrase that says they do it for money. They do the work of ministry, but they do it for what they can get out of it. Here's the question, regardless of where you land, if you are a full-time minister, a full-time employed by a church, or if you're just serving in some capacity. Here's the question to chew on, and we talked about this a little bit in the message, but do I have a tendency to serve where I'm most needed or I'm most rewarded? I would like you to ask that question of yourself, discuss it. Do I have a tendency to serve where I'm most needed or where I'm most recognized, the most rewarded? Continuing on, it says in verse 13, reprimand them sternly to make them strong in the faith. Reprimand them sternly to make them strong in the faith. The goal of a reprimand is so that the person that's being reprimanded becomes greater, stronger in their faith. So the question is there someone whose behavior you desire to reprimand? And then the next question is, let's be honest about your intentions. Do you care about them, or do you just want them to know that they are wrong, to make you feel better about yourself? Or are you reprimanding because you care? You want them to be better. You want them to grow in their faith. I'd love for you to discuss that. Then we're going to jump into verse 14. It says, they must stop listening to the Jewish myths and the commands of people who have turned away from the truth. So stop listening to those that are influencing you away from the truth. Here's the question. Is there anything that you are listening to that is leading you away from the truth? Is there anything you need to stop listening to, stop reading, stop watching, because it's taking you away from the truth? It's not helpful, it's harmful. Discuss that. Get some accountability to stop listening, stop having that input into your life. And finally, we're going to jump down to verse 16, where we ended our time together. It says, such people claim that they know God, but they deny Him by the way that they live. They're detestable and disobedient, worthless for doing anything good. You just talked about how the gospel leads to godly living, and godly living leads to influence. And when we are not captivated by the gospel that's leading to godly living, it impacts our influence. So it all starts with the gospel, it all starts with grace, but it does end with an influence that God has for your life. So here's the question. Is there anything in my life that is hindering the influence that God has for me? Is there anything in my life that is hindering the influence that God has for me? You are a leader. You have great influence. We are so spoiled to have you a part of this season of Anchor Church, where we are planting, we are launching, we're building the foundation. You are a warrior. You are a leader. We love you. Discuss this with somebody, and we'll be back for Church Planting 101 next Sunday. Love you, Anchor Church.